The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
It's been a whirlwind month. That's all part of the plan. Unlike Trump 1.0, the chaos is calculated and explicitly designed to institutionalize MAGA, paralyze the president's enemies, and permanently break the Washington establishment. It's not just D.C. getting a makeover. He's upending the world order. No one expected Trump to handle global affairs like his predecessors, but few expected him to move so rapidly to reorient U.S. foreign policy away from the course it has charted since 1945.
Well, Germany's election is fast approaching, with polls indicating that Sunday's vote is likely to shift the country to the right. Despite voter concerns about a sluggish economy, the election's been dominated by Germany's migration policies, security, the war in Ukraine, and outside interference.
This election was supposed to be about the economy. Then Elon Musk got involved, endorsing the far-right Alternative for Germany party, or AfD.
Only AfD can save Germany.
He then appeared at a campaign event, encouraging Germans to let go of the past.
Children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents, or even let alone their parents, their great-grandparents, maybe.
That gave the anti-immigration party exposure they've never had before.
I'm hearing very often during the meetings and the one-on-ones we had here on this conference that there is obviously a lack of German leadership within the European Union. And I fully agree with all those who are demanding more leadership from Germany. And frankly, I'm willing to do that because I'm seeing that Germany is in a strategic position in the center of Europe, that so many things in Europe depends on Germany, that we are having to take a new role, which is traditionally the role Germany had taken in the past.
A whole series of very complex questions will arise, but we will have to talk to the British and the French, to both European nuclear powers, about the question of whether we can also claim nuclear sharing and at least nuclear security from Great Britain and France. This is an issue that the French government has indeed raised with the German government on several occasions, but it has always gone unanswered by the German government.
Here's what I wrote about it, and this is a quote. European parliamentarian Otto von Habsburg said, quote, "The European community is living largely by the heritage of the Holy Roman Empire, though the great majority of the people who live by it don't know by what heritage they live." Now, that is amazing. Well, how is it? Well, because they went underground after World War II. And then even today, they don't want to talk about that very much publicly because they know there's been a prophecy way back even to World War II by Herbert W. Armstrong around the world, and he had a powerful message all over the world. And he was telling people what was going to happen to Germany and how they were going to become the leader of that Holy Roman Empire. The Germans have many wonderful characteristics. They are great people, but they are extremely dangerous when they become militarily strong. History gives us abundant proof of this fact. Our own leaders recognized that immediately after World War II. Sometimes we need to be reminded of how horrible men can be toward their fellow men. And there is probably no better example of inhumanity than that of the Germans in World War II. Franklin Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill said this in February 1945. This was taken from a signed document. "It is our inflexible purpose to destroy German militarism and Nazism and to ensure Germany will never again be able to disturb the peace of the world. We are determined to disarm and disband all German armed forces. break up for all time. The German General Staff, break it up for all time, this document says. The German General Staff that has repeatedly, over and over and over again throughout history, it has repeatedly contrived the resurgence of German militarism. Remove or destroy all German military equipment, eliminate or control all German industry that could be used for military production. It is not our purpose to destroy the people of Germany, but only when Nazism and militarism have been extirpated or completely destroyed will there be hope for a decent life for Germans and a place for them in the community of nations.
Only when German militarism is completely destroyed can Germany be welcomed into the community of nations. Those last two clips from my father, the most recent one, the program that's playing this weekend, it's titled, "Germany is Seeking a New Charlemagne." They've got the elections coming up Sunday. You heard from the leader of the CDU, Friedrich Merz. He gave a speech, or he was in that panel discussion at the Munich Security Conference. And then he's in an interview, he's talking about nuclear bomb sharing with Great Britain and with France. Germany, with the help of Britain and France, perhaps, having nuclear weapons. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show, the final show of the week. Can hardly believe that. So much has been going on this week, as we'll get to more of it here in just a moment. You can get to the live video stream of this show at trumpetdaily.com or at the Rumble channel, rumble.com/Trumpet Daily. And don't forget to support us over at Live from America TV, LFA TV, on the Rumble platform as well. So just as I drove over here for the show, just think for a moment about what is, occupying the minds of all of the talking heads, the distractions, when we're living right through some of the most momentous fulfilled prophecies. It's happening right before our eyes. And you look at the rift between Canada and the U.S. I saw the hockey game last night. We enjoyed it. It was a bone-crushing defeat for America. If I have time, I'll come back to that a little bit later. But to see Justin Trudeau trying to sort of rebrand himself as a traditional Canadian patriot, it's remarkable to watch. But then, and you've heard it on this show, we've been discussing it at length. Donald Trump, Orange Hitler, he's the storyline. He's the storyline with Ukraine. He's the storyline with NATO. I heard a conservative talk radio host go on and on about, Doge finding all of this fraud, this waste, and that American taxpayers might get a $5,000 check. They might get that next year sometime. This is big news. And then you've got the Senate. They're up all night working for you on another big bloated budget. And Rand Paul, he puts together some legislation calling for $1 trillion something in cuts, a cut in spending in light of all of this fraud and waste that's been found. And can't do it. Now, even Republican senators, they can't get on board with that. Of course, every Democrat votes against it. Look at what we're preoccupied with. And meanwhile, you've got this chilling report from the Telegraph. Ambrose Evans Pritchard, or Pritchard Evans, he says, but now as Donald Trump's diplomacy with Russia sends shockwaves through Europe, it's Trump. You see, he's shocking Europe. People are stunned and shocked by what Orange Hitler is doing. It says Britain and its allies may have to develop a modern V-force to carry so-called tactical nuclear weapons. And he says Friedrich Merz, leader of Germany's CDU party and frontrunner to become the country's next chancellor in elections on Sunday, was clear about the risks ahead in a TV interview on Friday. And then it gives the quote. You heard it. It was in German, but the voiceover. We need to have discussions with both the British and the French, the two European nuclear powers, about whether nuclear sharing or at least nuclear security from the UK and France could also apply to us. How is this not a headline in every publication on earth? No, it's Trump, or it's hockey, or it's the rift between so-and-so and Trump, or it's Congress, or it's government waste, it's inefficiency. Satan is just bombarding the airwaves with everything except the most important headline. Germany has the go-ahead to militarize itself. Something Western leaders said coming out of World War II would never, 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 never happen. You heard my father in those clips. I mean, it's not just World War II. It's happened repeatedly in history. Going back to its biblical identity days. Assyria, from Assyria all the way through to modern Assyria, that would be Germany. When they are militarized, it is never good for the rest of the world. It just isn't. That's the truth. And no one else is proclaiming this message. That clip of my father from 1993, and you lay that alongside what he says this weekend. I mean, it's been the same consistent message as I've noted this week. And it predates even the 93 Key of David. That was the year the Key of David started. But you go back to Herbert W. Armstrong, here again, he was right. We have the brochure. He was right. This was his signature prophecy that Germany would rearm and head up the seventh and final resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire. And my father even said, in this weekend's program that there's higher-ups in Germany that have to be aware of what Herbert Armstrong proclaimed all these years. And here they've been able to hide behind the European Union. They've been able to hide behind NATO. They've been able to hide behind America. America's providing the umbrella of security. But now they don't have to hide. Now there's still some work to be done as far as militarizing itself. But if they can expedite the process by borrowing or sharing, either with Britain or France, two Israelite nations, by the way, nuclear weapons? Is this really a conversation that we're having? You think about some of my father's articles from years ago about the U.S. nuclear weapons that we have in Turkey or even on German soil. Herbert Armstrong talked about Germany using those weapons, turning them on America in the end, as we draw near to the great tribulation prophesied in Matthew 24. Jesus himself said it's unlike anything this world has ever seen. This is what we have to brace ourselves for. These are some electrifying prophecies, and they're being fulfilled. And it sure is easy to get distracted with, some of those other stories are important. They're worth covering in some detail. But really, a $5,000 check, most Americans would happily take it, I suppose. You've got one congresswoman saying, yeah, it's not really that much money. Easy for her to say. Western officials are concerned that an American pullback from the continent, long viewed as unthinkable, but now frighteningly plausible, would leave NATO with a deterrence gap. They need deterrence. It says the U.S. still has a nuclear stockpile in Europe consisting entirely of aircraft-dropped B-61 weapons, Around 100 remain stored at air bases in Germany, Italy, and Turkey. However, the fear in Western capitals is that these could be removed under any agreement between Putin and Trump. See, Trump now, he's an agent of Putin. He loves Putin. That's the narrative. He's empowering Putin. And, he's making some pretty big miscalculations with respect to Putin as well. But look at the miscalculation with respect to Germany. Herbert Armstrong spoke of this many years ago on his program. We played it last week, clip 9.
But then, we think that God is sort of a myth, and he's far off, and maybe he's not real, and maybe he couldn't really help us. So we must depend on something that is real. We must depend on something that we can see. And so now we're so afraid of Russia that the United States government feels that it must take what we call a calculated risk, and try to build up Germany and Central Europe against Russia.
A calculated risk. It says here the U.S. further on, the fear in Western capitals is that these could be removed, the U.S. nukes that is, under any agreement between Putin and Trump, piling pressure on Britain and France as Europe's only nuclear powers to develop their own. Well, we have no choice. We have no choice. The bad orange man has abandoned us. He doesn't like us anymore. He's not paying for everything in NATO. Look at what he's doing in Ukraine. How about what Germany's doing in Ukraine or not doing? I'll come to that in just a second. Richard Palmer had a great article on that. I think it's posted at the Trumpet site just today. One idea, just to finish this article from the Telegraph, one idea that has been floating around since the 1960s and could be dusted off in Whitehall is a British proposal for an Atlantic nuclear force. This would see NATO allies in Europe pay towards an expansion of the UK's nuclear capabilities so the burden would not fall on London alone. I mean, that's fine. I mean, if Germany gives us some money, we'll give them a nuke. They're our ally, after all. Germany with nukes is no problem. You watch all these prophecies. They're in He Was Right. We've been at it for almost 100 years. And we're going to be the only voice out there sounding the alarm. Our lovers, and your Bible says this, our lovers are going to betray us. And listen, if you just had a little bit of an understanding of history alone, leave aside Bible prophecy if you like. But look at history. It's like my father said in that cold open. It's happened repeatedly. Repeatedly. Look at this book, the Holy Roman Empire in Prophecy. There's a lot of history discussed in this book as well. Like everything else we offer, it's offered without cost or obligation. Just call the 800 number there, 1-866-930-3024, and secure your free copy today. So Trump is the bad guy in Europe. He's the bad guy with respect to the Ukraine-Russia war. But notice this from Richard Palmer. It says, this is just from today or yesterday, why Germany torpedoed France's Ukraine deal. You know, France calls this summit together. They're panicking over Donald Trump's positioning, and they call European leaders together, and they want to give Ukraine more support, etc. And Germany, they nixed the deal. Why? Why? It says Emmanuel Macron wants to build Europe into a superstate that can defend itself against the U.S. He and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer pledged thousands of troops to patrol a border zone between Ukrainian and Russian forces. It was a bold vision, an alternative peace plan showing Europe could stand up and act without the U.S. until Germany scuppered the whole thing Germany comes in and says, nope, not going to do it. And of course, everyone else falls in line in Europe. Oh, okay, you say we can't do it. Well, then I guess we'll just end the discussion then. And they did. Richard Palmer says, why would Germany kill the deal? It's every bit as keen for a Europe that can defend itself against the United States as France is. Here was a golden opportunity to break with the U.S. and demonstrate that Europe could stand as a military power in its own right. And then Mr. Palmer says, the key is Ukraine. So here we come back to Ukraine. This isn't the first time Germany has scuppered Ukraine's plans. Mr. Macron has indirectly criticized Germany for its reluctance to send actual weapons to Ukraine instead of sleeping bags and helmets. This time last year, Macron discussed sending ground troops. And Scholz, he's the outgoing, evidently, or probably will be, the outgoing chancellor in Germany. Scholz shut that deal down. There will be no ground troops, no soldiers sent by European countries or NATO states, said Scholz, said Germany. But just so you know, Trump is the bad guy. Trump is the one that's withdrawn all the support from Ukraine. This is what we're supposed to believe. Why is Germany continually saying what Russia wants to hear? That's what my father wrote last year when Scholz came out and nuked the deal. Why is it withholding critical weaponry? Why is it putting brakes on other countries' efforts to help Ukraine? And then Richard Palmer says, many commentators were mystified at the way Germany was thwarting European bargaining efforts by taking key threats off the table. It says, what Macron and these commentators do not understand is Germany's long history of cooperation with Russia. So here are all these commentators writing about Donald Trump's cooperation with Russia when they should be writing about this. Because here again, Germany has a long history of doing this repeatedly. If it serves its interest, I mean, it's had its long history of warring against Russia as well. But look at these secret deals in the lead up to World War II. And then my father, he wrote back in 2008 that Germany and Russia probably already have a secret deal in place that hurts or undermines the United States. Let's not get distracted away from what's really significant here. It says, what Macron and these commentators do not understand is Germany's long history of cooperation with Russia. This has resumed in recent years. In the November-December 2008 Trumpet, my father said this, I believe that Germany's leaders may have already agreed to a deal with Russia, a modern Hitler-Stalin pact where Germany and Russia divide countries and assets between themselves. This agreement would allow each to turn its sights on other targets. I mean, it's perfect for both sides, for this war to just keep going on and on and on. So long as America is weakened by pouring hundreds of billions into it, and then Russia and Germany can carve up Ukraine any way they see fit. But no, here's the narrative. It's Trump. It's Trump that's carving up Ukraine. It's Trump that needs to keep pouring in billions. And it's Germany that needs to build pipelines and enter into energy deals with Russia, with Putin. You add to that so many of these communist leaders, Joe Obama, for example, driving up energy costs, which just gave Putin more cash during this Ukraine war because he got more money for his gas, his energy supplies. Isn't it amazing how you see them do it every day, following after the latest shiny object? Oh, okay, $5,000 check, $5,000 check. Meanwhile, Herbert Armstrong's signature prophecy being fulfilled. The whole world looking at Germany saying, oh, isn't that nice? They're talking to Britain about sharing nuclear weapons. Anyhow, did you see the hockey game last night? Sharing nuclear weapons. This demonstrates total ignorance, not just of Bible prophecy, but of modern history. Total ignorance. Look at what man thinks about the human spirit, about human nature. In trying to build a strong European military force, Macron is empowering Germany, yet he's completely ignorant of Germany's dealings with Russia. And then quoting my father, Richard Palmer says, this is the most dangerous mistake France has made in all its history. Macron's efforts to help Germany build a united military power will accelerate under Trump's second term, but his ignorance shows he doesn't know what Germany will do with this power once it is built. But the thing of it is, I mean, Macron is not alone. He's helping to empower Germany. Britain's helping them. Trump's helping them. Elon Musk is helping them. The whole world has thrown support behind this effort. We need Germany to lead a European empire, pure and simple. And Germany is quite happy to do it. Well, I mean, if you fellas want us to, we'll do it. And I mean, we're in dialogue with Britain and France about sharing nuclear weapons. We've had this quote in our literature, many pieces of our literature, my father drawing attention to a U.S. document that was declassified, I think in 1996. But it says here, by 1944, the Germans knew they would lose World War II and were already planning for the next round. Could that possibly be true? Have they been planning for the next round for that long? It says, quoting this document, existing financial reserves in foreign countries, the declassified document says, must be placed at the disposal of the party so that a strong German empire can be created after the defeat. It's taken a while. It's taken a lot of help from America, from Britain, from France, even Putin's Russia. It's taken a while to rebuild this empire. There's still a little bit of work to be done. Certainly on the military side of things, there's some work to be done. But the empire is back. And all it's lacking is the emperor. And now, just like you heard in the cold open, I mean, look at the pace of events just in the last month. How spot on, by the way, that at the moment Donald Trump was sworn in, at the moment he was inaugurated president of the United States for the second time, my father started talking about the rise of that beast power in Germany, in the heart of Europe. He started talking about that final resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire. Why would Germany kill the deal? Why would Germany tell France and the others, nope, we're not going to do that? Well, as Mr. Palmer says, the key is Ukraine. But what do people talk about or report on when the subject of Ukraine or Zelensky come up? Well, it's Trump. It's Trump. Listen, we've talked a little bit about this week, but again, just for some insight into the dialogue between the U.S. officials and Zelensky and his people over the past week or so. This is the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, commenting on Trump when he referred to Zelensky as a dictator and some of the negotiating that had gone on, and then that was shut down. Play clip 2.
When President Trump posts that President Zelensky is a dictator without elections, what are you thinking?
I think President Trump is very upset at President Zelensky, and in some cases, and rightfully so. Look, number one, Joe Biden had frustrations with Zelensky. People shouldn't forget it. There are newspaper articles out there about how he cursed at him in a phone call because Zelensky, instead of saying thank you for all your help, is immediately out there messaging what we're not doing or what he's not getting. I think the second thing is, frankly, I was personally very upset because we had a conversation with President Zelensky, the vice president and I, the three of us. And we discussed this issue about the mineral rights. And we explained to them, look, we want to be in a joint venture with you, not because we're trying to steal from your country, but because we think that's actually a security guarantee. If we're your partner in an important economic endeavor, we get to get paid back some of the money the taxpayers have given, close to $200 billion. And it also, now we have a vested interest in the security of Ukraine. And he said, sure, we want to do this deal. It makes all the sense in the world. The only thing is I need to run it through my legislative process. They have to approve it. I read 2 days later that Zelensky's out there saying, I rejected the deal. I told him no way that we're not doing that. Well, that's not what happened in that meeting. So you start to get upset by somebody. We're trying to help these guys. One of the points that the president made in his messaging is not that we don't care about Ukraine, but Ukraine is on another continent. You know, it doesn't directly impact the daily lives of Americans. We care about it because it has implications for our allies and ultimately for the world. There should be some level of gratitude here about this. And when you don't see it and you see him out there accusing the president of living in a world of disinformation, that's very counterproductive. And I don't need to explain to you or anybody else, President Trump's not the kind of person that's going to sit there and take that. He's very transparent. He's going to tell you exactly how he feels. And he sent a message that he's not going to get gamed here. He's willing to work on peace because he cares about Ukraine. And he hopes Zelensky will be a partner in that, and not someone who's out there putting this sort of counter messaging to try to, hustle us in that regard. That's not going to be productive here.
America, for 3 years, has been Ukraine's strongest supporter, partner even. And there's Rubio saying, yeah, we did talk to them about mineral rights, just to recoup some of the funding that we've provided. And initially, Zelensky seemed fine with it. Then he has to talk to his legislators. And who knows who else he's had to talk to. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's talking to European leaders as well. Do you think Germany wants the United States to recoup some of its losses? Germany's just like Putin. They love to see the U.S. superpower weakened. It's so easy to hate on America. Even Canada is joining in on the fun. There is no country, I know I'm saying this as an American, there's no country on earth that's as disrespected as the United States is, just routinely. That doesn't mean every U.S. policy is spot on. I mean, we're sending money, as I've said this week, all over the world. We're funding the world in many ways. And then the funding stops, and nations are screaming. And everything's Orange Hitler's fault. No mineral rights for you, not even gratitude. I mean, it's obvious that Zelensky has really upset Donald Trump. That's why I went on with the diatribe the other day, calling him a dictator and so on. But what about the deal that Germany squashed? For Europe to send in more than sleeping bags, but to send in some support for Ukraine and the champion of democracy and the modern day Churchill. Yeah, Germany squashed that idea. Why? And where was the outcry? And why did the other member states of the European Union just fall right in line? Whatever Germany says, okay. And now Germany's talking about sharing nuclear weapons. Coming back to Ukraine, this is a guy writing at the Kiev Post. I assume he's a Ukrainian. It's easy to portray U.S. President Donald Trump's demand for a minerals deal as a cynical effort to take advantage of the victim of aggression when he has no other choice. The reality, however, is far more complex, and a deal between the U.S. and Ukraine could offer significant benefits for Ukraine. I mean, look, if your country's about to be crushed, how do you just tell the United States of America, nope, no minerals for you, no payback for anything that you've invested into our country, nothing. And furthermore, if Putin represents that kind of a threat to Eastern Europe, to all of Europe, then again, why would Germany squash the deal last year, put forward by France? Why would Germany enter into that Nord Stream deal with Russia? Why? I mean, these are some questions that ought to be considered, right? Well, they are at the Trumpet magazine, and the trumpet.com website, but nowhere else. It says, at the moment, Ukraine is sitting on vast reserves of untapped natural resources, wealth. A good portion is in territory occupied by Russia and thus inaccessible to Ukraine. The rest, while in unoccupied territory, is not likely to be developed successfully until there's an end to Russia's attacks against Ukraine. So, while the potential valuation of such reserves is extraordinary, it has little present value because of the war and would have no value if Ukraine were to be defeated. Then you hand it all over to Russia. It makes sense, in other words. This guy's saying it makes sense to invite the Americans in to help them recoup some of their losses and eventually to enrich Ukraine as well. Who could be against this? Answer, Zelensky. Zelensky and his legislators, and probably European leaders as well. Despite all the progress it has made, Ukraine will continue to need massive Western military and financial support for a long time to come. In other words, they need America. They need American support. They need American funding, and they're going to need it for a long time. Give them the minerals. Give them the mineral rights. What's the problem? None of this makes sense, really, unless you understand that the number one enemy in the minds of so many of these nations is the United States of America. You've seen the quote all through our literature. From the moment they knew they lost, 1944, they started plotting, they started planning for the next round of warfare. Well, I could continue to go on. My father's latest program, maybe we could finish with a reference to that and some clips from this weekend's show, and also that one that I showed you from in the cold open from 1993. It's pretty amazing. There's a consistency to the message, to the warnings coming from God's family. We'll see that when we come back, but I want to take a short break, and then we'll come back and show you this week's installment of WorldWatch. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We'll be right back.
Daily news, Bible prophecy. See the connection on the Trumpet Daily. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the flood of news and information? You need something to sift the news and bring you only what matters most. You need the Trumpet Daily. You also need something to help you understand not just what's happening now, but what will happen next. You need the Trumpet Daily. Only the Trumpet Daily accurately matches daily news to precise Bible prophecies. Because Bible prophecy is the only tool up to the task of sifting the news down to what's important and showing you what will happen next. Join host Stephen Flurry every weekday. Go to trumpetdaily.com.
Russia and Sudan reached an agreement giving Moscow a Red Sea naval base near Port Sudan, Sudan's foreign minister announced on February 12th. Russia is gaining power in Africa. Though it may struggle to maintain this after Syria's revolution, this is still an ominous sign for the West as Western powers lose influence in Africa. It could also open the door for Iran, a close Russian partner and major Western enemy, to entrench its own influence along the Red Sea. The Bible reveals that Europe and Iran will gain influence over major African nations. Though Russia isn't mentioned in these prophecies, its exploits in the region are setting the stage for this future conquest. Russia's military foothold may stir Europe to focus more on the region. This could motivate Iran to move into nations such as Sudan, strengthening its grip on the Red Sea. To learn more, read Putin's African Empire. If Europe is weak or divided, Russia could be ready to launch a large-scale war against the continent within the next 5 years, the Danish Defense Intelligence Service said in a report released February 12th. The report added that this is particularly likely to happen if the US does not support the European NATO countries. The Danish statement comes after US President Donald Trump said he wanted to end the war in Ukraine, which is nearing its 3-year mark. Trump has also suggested that the US could withdraw from NATO if the Europeans don't pay enough toward defense. As the war between Russia and Ukraine drags on and the US becomes an unreliable ally, Europe is realizing it needs to militarize quickly to defend itself. Watch for this fear of Russia to turn the continent into a unified, militaristic superpower, as prophesied in your Bible. To learn more, read Russia's War on Ukraine is Reshaping Europe. Pope Francis, who was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14th, is receiving treatment for a complex clinical situation and will remain under medical care for as long as needed, the Vatican announced on February 17th. The 88-year-old pontiff has been suffering with bronchitis and pneumonia symptoms. Francis has also suffered falls recently, reported on December 7th and January 16th, that have raised health concerns. Through the centuries, popes have given Europe guidance. Europe now faces numerous crises, but it lacks dynamic political and religious leaders to guide it through these challenging situations. The Trumpet expects Europe to unite powerfully under the guidance of the Catholic Church in the near future. This will almost certainly be under the leadership of a new pope. To learn more, read Pope, Europe Will Fail Without the Catholic Church. To learn more about current world news and how it relates to Bible prophecy, please visit thetrumpet.com.
And off the drop again, went forward, and here we got a shot on. The car sends it around. Marner waiting. Connor McDavid scores! Connor McDavid for Canada!
I had to squeeze it in for our Canadian audience. They're probably still celebrating. And as our news gatherer from up north said this morning, probably as well, totally oblivious to the big news coming out of Europe, out of Germany, to be precise. Play, if you have the freeze frame from right before the shot. Here we are. It was a great game. The two teams seemed, now that it's over, I can go back to being an uninterested hockey observer. I think I've watched 3 hockey games in my entire life. So I did watch this one, and I heard about the U.S., America's vaunted defense. And there you see them. They're in the blue around the perimeter. And the guy right in the middle of the screen, as I understand it, he's the best hockey player in the world. In the world. And he's standing alone in overtime. In overtime, completely unguarded, about 15 feet in front of the net. So there you go. You have my expert analysis on how the game concluded. Sad to see it conclude with something like this. I mean, somebody, we need to send in Doge because somebody needs to get fired over a mistake of this magnitude. He's the best, right in the middle, nobody on him, and he's the best hockey player in the world. There you go. I've said enough. But I will comment a little bit more on Justin Trudeau, who tweeted out, you can't take our country and you can't take our game. So there he is rubbing it in on Donald Trump. This is from Spiked Online. It says, Canada's hated prime minister announced he was resigning last month. Most Canadians rejoiced at the apparent end of Justin Trudeau's reign. His Liberal Party was facing death. Support had fallen to just 16% by the end of December, an all-time low. In truth, Trudeau had not actually resigned. He merely announced that he planned to resign. He was aware he was facing a non-confidence motion, which would force him to resign and force an election. And it seems like that the Conservatives were poised and ready to return to power. It says here he was essentially holding Canada hostage so he can buy time. Yeah, and ever since he's been rebranding himself as I said earlier, as this staunch Canadian patriot. And he's talking about Donald Trump taking his country. In fact, his regime has seized control of the country, and he wants to hold on to power. And so you have all this fake outrage that he's leading in response, yet again, to the bad orange man. Keep in mind, the bad orange man is always, always, always at the center of the narrative. It certainly is with Trudeau. The timing of Trudeau's suspension of Parliament was convenient. He knew Donald Trump's tariff threat was incoming. The Liberals saw this as an opportunity to create a new enemy in America, pointing the finger at Trump as they fashion themselves as patriotic defenders of Canadian sovereignty. And then they go on and talk about Canadians booing the U.S. national anthem. And then the lady that sang the Canadian anthem last night, she changed the words in protest against, guess who? That would be Orange Hitler. She changed the words of Canada's national. That's not an outrage. There's no outcry over that, as far as I know. It's just Trump. Trump with the tariffs, Trump with the comments about the 51st state, Trump with the comments about Governor. What a bunch of distractions away from what's really and truly most significant. This week's Key of David, Germany is seeking a new Charlemagne. The empire is hunting for the emperor, and it's most likely not going to be the one that's elected in on Sunday, because Daniel says he comes in through flatteries, through words of peace. He sounds like an angel of light. He will. Here's a clip from my father's show. This is from this weekend, clip 10.
So even today, German leaders talk about getting a Charlemagne. I mean, many of them do. They want a new Charlemagne, a strong leader over Europe, which will really be the Holy Roman Empire. It's going to be pared down to 10 kings, according to Bible prophecy, and it will happen. The prophecies are always fulfilled. There will be those 10 nations and 10 kings. And we mentioned how this union will be horrifying. History bears this out. Conspiracy, betrayal, bloodshed, intolerance, execution, and so on. That is what is going to happen in that Holy Roman Empire. And they are not going to be friends of America or Britain or the Jewish state. They are not going to be our friends. And we need to keep that in mind. If you look at what they've done in the past, well, it's very frightening.
They're not going to be our friends. And you can already see this if you just do a little bit of digging in the news. You see it. This is from the National Interest. It says here, Germany is being battered from within by a faltering economy and from without by a vengeful Trump administration. They need a strong man. What Germans did not expect was that Washington would go bonkers, embarking upon what amounts to a role reversal, abandoning Western Europe to embark upon a fling with Moscow. No, actually, if you read Mr. Palmer's article from today at thetrumpet.com, it's Germany who has historically had these flings with Moscow. Oh, yes. As I learned while attending a variety of political and think tank events over the last few days, Germany feels jilted by the Trump administration. Yeah, it's Germany who's the victim here. Germany is battered. And of course, it's Trump that's gone bonkers. It's Trump that's in bed with Putin. All of this was mere prologue, of course, for Trump's own tirade about Ukrainian President Zelensky and claims about the great promise that peace in our time with Russia holds for America. It's a measure of Trump's ability to bend reality for his followers that he can convert Zelensky, the Winston Churchill of our time, into a nefarious figure worthy of condemnation. You can't criticize Zelensky. He's the angel, and Putin's the devil. Let's get that clear. The line is clear between these two. This is one of many commentaries, just like this. It quotes another one from a German publication. The West was never a fully homogeneous community of value, but it was united by similar conceptions of a desirable order in its countries as well as between them. Trump does not share it. It's Germany saying that Trump, just doesn't share our democratic values. No, you actually have it the wrong way. When J.D. Vance shows up and starts talking about democracy and free speech, you're the ones that don't like that message. That's right. It says, under Trump's leadership and with the applause of his followers, America is transforming itself with frightening rapidity into a semi-authoritarian system. Wow. Well, they've been getting a steady diet of this message from the regime media right here in America. Yeah, Trump's the authoritarian. Trump's the dictator. How dare Trump say that he's going to sit down with Putin? I mean, people sit down with corrupt tyrants all the time. This is Satan's world. Now, as I said earlier this week, it doesn't make any sense, looking at it spiritually, to sit down with the devil to try to negotiate peace. But it has been done by other nations. That's my point. Including Germany. Including Germany. Yeah, they squashed the deal. The Europeans wanted to help Ukraine more just last year. And Germany came along and said, no, fellas, we're not going to do that. Don't want to do that. The title of that piece, Can Germany Reorient Itself and Europe? And then another one, I don't have time to get through it. Europe must unite or die. I gave you the one yesterday. It's time for Europe to do the unthinkable. These are all over the place. Can Germany rise to the challenge of protecting Europe? That's at the Spectator. The Spectator, just kind of, the knee-jerk reaction is that, well, Europe needs protection, and of course Germany has to do it. So when Germany goes and talks to Britain and France about sharing nuclear weapons, it's perfectly normal. It's perfectly normal because they're our ally, you see. They're allied with our values. Well, or if they're not, It's because of Trump. Trump is now an authoritarian. This is the perfect setup for Satan to do his business, all of his double dealings, all of his betrayals, and all of it aligning with Bible prophecy. Listen to my father from back in 1993. Let's see, let's play number 15.
This great economic war-making machine is going to take nations into slavery, trading in people's lives, killing them or selling them, and using them and abusing them horribly. When the mind of Satan gets into the mind of a human being, it is a terrible thing to behold. That is the power that is going to be extant on this earth very soon. God has spoken it, and it's going to happen. And all we can do is tell the people, just like Mr. Herbert Armstrong did. Many people scoffed when Mr. Armstrong preached these prophecies years ago. And he prophesied and preached them when Germany was in rubble. People scoffed, but they're not scoffing anymore. Now, we see that a powerful Germany is back. It's here. And in actuality, it is the Holy Roman Empire that has been virtually restored. And the whole world is just about to see the powerful military might of Germany one more time. And then Jesus Christ is going to come and put a stop to it all.
People used to scoff, but not anymore. That's all we have time for on today's show, the fastest moving hour in broadcasting. I took you a couple minutes over, but I won't charge you for those extra minutes, that extra content. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. Thanks for joining us on today's program, and we'll see you next time.